was added. And in that agreement, there were three typographical errors that we did correct, but those did not affect the content or meaning of the agreement in any way.
All right, thank you, Deb. All right, then do we have a motion to approve that amended agenda?
Mayor, I move to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Miller, Counselor Hansi.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, we're going to move into our proclamations and presentations. So we've got one presentation tonight and one proclamation. So our first presentation is for the Fruita Teachers and Students of the Month for November. And we've got Rimrock Elementary School here. I'm going to come down up front, and I've asked Janine to help me with this. All right, so we've got some students and some teachers here that we want to recognize. This is one of the things we do every month. We have a different school in the city of Fruita. And so we ask the principals to work on who they'd like to present to or who they'd like to give an award to. And each school does something different. And so what we're going to start with is we're going to start with kindergarten, and we're going to work up through first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grades. And so I'm going to read your name and just what was written about that student. Then we'd ask the student to come on up. And then once we get all the students up here, then it'll allow parents and family and friends to take photos. And so the first one is Makai Watkins. And it says, Makai Watkins comes to Mrs. Lenhart's class every day with a smile and a positive attitude for learning. He is kind, helpful, and a great member of Rimrock Elementary's kindergarten team. You want to come up? Stand over. All right. The next one is Bristol Bergstrom. Bristol is the whole package. She is always kind and helpful to other learners, and works incredibly hard. She always has a smile and fantastic attitude. Bristol is always listening to the speaker and soaks up every bit of learning. She applies what she is learning right away. Bristol is such a joy to be around and have as a role model in our community. The other thing we're handing out is a sticker and a Fruita Rec Pass, so a day pass over at the rec center. The next one is Elle Rodman. Elle shows Roar learning behaviors throughout the day. She is always kind, cooperative, and respectful. She has a growth mindset is an on-task learner. So Elle? Ellie. We've got Violet Pingle. Violet is an excellent student who always works so hard in everything she does. She is kind to everyone and is a wonderful friend. She has a smile that lights up the room. We are lucky to have her at Rimrock. Colby Dare. Colby Dare is an outstanding student. He is hardworking and always on task. Colby is truly a role model for his classmates and leads by example. Every day as Colby leaves the classroom, he says thank you to the teacher. Other students have started to follow his lead. Colby? Egan Andrews. Egan exemplifies the very best attitude and spirit at Rimrock Elementary. He strives every day to excel at each subject, taking the time to reread, think, problem solve, and rewrite. He is also a member of Rimrock's National Elementary Honor Society, as well as our student council. He enjoys problem solving in advanced math, and his favorite books are fiction with lots of adventure in them. All right, and the last one I have, and this is going to be, I'd like all the teachers that work at Rimrock to come up after I get done with this one. Principal Callis would like to acknowledge and celebrate the entire staff at Rimrock for working so hard in the first quarter and supporting and growing all Rimrock's learners and their families, as well as each other. So anybody that's staff or teachers at Rimrock, if you want to come up and stand behind all these students, then we can get some great photos. Don't be shy. Do we have everybody? Should we make Karen take the certificate? She's used to this, right? Come on, Karen. All right. So anybody that wants a photo, now's the time to.
Yeah.
Wait, we still have one more, right? All right, let's give him another round of applause. Job.
Do we get to go congratulate? Go say hi.
Thank you, Mary. Did I say a few words?
Good to see you.
You too.
Thanks.
Move all this stuff. Huh?
Move all this TV.
I know, huh? What is, it's like, is it East?
great, it's the boneyard.
Oh, freaking.
James,
Where-
you got your face back.
And-
Welcome back.
Yeah, a little faster than normal. Usually it's like a month later, I'm like.
Wait.
My mom in the mirror.
They don't want to stay for the budget?
I'm sure Karen wants to stay for the budget. Nope, she's like,
She's
I
like-
am out of here.
Like, I'm
No,
not even having any of your joke.
Recording stopped.
Yeah.
Cool.
Get a good.
Did you notice when all the kids were lined up, it was like a perfect.
Yes.
And you go, yeah. it's
Right.
perfect.
Remember those old grades?
Yeah.
Well, usually it's by age, if you're, you know.
I don't know, usually there's like one girl that's more than everybody else.
Thank you, Sharon.
You didn't come up for the phone.
It's good to see you.
What's up with that?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Didn't you come up?
Yeah. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
all right. Now that the noisy group has left, we can move into our next proclamation.
One of our best pledges ever. though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, our proclamation tonight is Veterans Day proclamation. And we've got Commander KJ Klein of the Fruita American Legion. It looks like we've got Lou Brackett here as well from the American Legion. And so I've asked Aaron to read the proclamation.
The City of Fruita Veterans Day Proclamation. Whereas honorable service performed in the defense of our nation and our cause at the time of war is the highest form of citizenship. And whereas the men and women who have served in the armed forces of the United States of America have made their contributions toward the preservation of the freedom of this nation and her people. And whereas the service performed by these millions of gallant Americans have demonstrated the willingness of our nation to meet the challenges of those wishing to subjugate the individual determination through armed conflict. And whereas the nation and the free world are eternally grateful for the contributions of the American veterans, men and women, to the advancement and the cause of an honorable world peace. And whereas for many that sacrifice has ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirits remain in the continued preservation of the freedoms and the promise of liberty established as an example for all the oppressed persons of the world. And now, therefore, the City of Fruita City Council calls upon all citizens to observe Friday, November 11th, 2022, with appropriate ceremonies in honor of those who have served to preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy. Thank you very much. KJ and Lou.
AJ, did you want to come up and say a few words? Yeah.
Like you kids go first.
Right.
And then they all leave when I come up.
I'm not going to comment on that one.
That's okay. I think everybody knows.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate the city council and the city of Fruita recognizing veterans. It's greatly appreciated. A partnership we have is awesome. And I did want to share just a few words. This is from a speech from General Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, who was a Civil War general, fought at the Battle of Gettysburg. And he did a lot of speaking later on in life. But this one in particular, he was talking to the veterans and why they served. You saw the old flag torn and trampled. You would ask no questions nor answer any till you had raised it up again, single and supreme. You took the high oath that those stars should not be blotted out nor dissevered and dispelled, that the spell of darkness should not shut out the heaven, but that those lights should burn from ocean shore to ocean shore and everywhere within the boundaries of the great Gulf and lakes, beacons by which the beating hearts of humanity should be lighted and learn their way. Thank you.
Thank you, KJ.
Yeah.
You want up here, Lou, for the photo?
Yeah.
Come on,
Come
Lou.
on, Lou.
Come on, Lou.
Don't be shy. You're never shy any other time. I know. All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move into our public participation. This section is set aside for the city council to listen to comments by the public regarding items that do not otherwise appear on this agenda. Generally, the city council will not discuss the issue and will not take an official action. So if there's somebody in the audience that'd like to speak on something not on the agenda, now would be the time. Come on up and state your name and address for the record, and then we please ask you to limit your comment to 3 minutes.
My name's Wendy Wood. My address 1891 J&N 610th Road in Fruita. First of all, I want to congratulate Councilman Hancy on your appointment. So glad to have you on serving Fruita. So also, I just want to thank you guys again. Every time I'm here, I want to continue to bless you and thank you for serving. It means a lot to step up. And obviously, not a lot of people are all that civic minded, but it's changing. That tide is changing. There's a scripture that talks about when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. It's not just about being moral and ethical, that scripture. It's also about right ruling. It's about ruling well. And that's what I pray for you, that you all rule well so that the people here do rejoice. They're happy. It says that when the cruel or I can't remember the exact word, but it's the people groan. And that's that groaning that you hear within them is that it's wanting more. It's needing better ruling within our nation. And we have a lot of groaning happening right now. And I think that if we start speaking these blessings over each other and speaking life, that it will change. It changes. So I'm just going to do a quick prayer. And then, so Father, I just thank you again for our council members here. I thank you for our veterans that have served this country so faithfully. And I thank you also for our teachers and staff that continue to dedicate their hearts and minds to these students. I just thank you that you continue to give wisdom and understanding and discernment to our council, and that they rightly rule for Mesa County, for City of Fruita, and for all of our government officials in our upcoming election too, that you raise up who you would choose to be in control and in these areas that would serve. So we just thank you and bless you in your name, Yahweh. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak at public participation? Seeing none, do you have anybody online?
No one online, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that, we're going to close public participation and move into our consent agenda. So these are items where all conditions or requirements have been agreed to or met prior to the time they come before council for final actions. They'll be all approved by one single motion of the council. So I'm going to open that up to public comment. Is there anybody that'd like to speak on anything on the consent agenda? Now would be your opportunity. Hearing none here. Are you here? Seeing anybody online?
No comments online, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll bring it back to council. Are there any questions or do we have a motion?
All right, I have a question and
All right.
please don't make any comments about my eyesight.
Okay.
I did not see the cover sheet and I think I somehow missed that in the packet. So I've not had a chance to review that, but do we need to approve that for that to go forward?
Which you're talking about the cover sheet for item E?
Or the
Draft law?
cover sheet for the draft letter?
Oh, that's not during this, that's during our council reports and actions at the end.
And never mind.
I have just, what's the storage issue on number 2 that they referenced? They didn't give any clarity in any of the documentation. Do we know what that is?
On which one are you talking? On the
The
consent?
Sorry, for the reservoirs. For number 2, the second reservoir, it just said there were storage issues. I was just curious what.
Yeah, it's an issue we've had for many years. So it's been discussed multiple times in the past. So we're happy to kind of give you a quick update, but there's a reservoir up there that the dam has sloughed. It's a natural like bank dam. And so we're required by the state to keep it below the spillway. As you know, that's the water that supplied drinking water to the city of Fruita until about it's either 81 or 1983. And wasn't enough at the time when we were that small. And now we maintain those rights by providing the irrigation water to Glade Park Water Users Association. So it's probably been about 5 or so years since we've had that, maybe a little less, maybe 4 or 5 years that we've had the reservoir below the spillway and have to keep it at that point. It's part of the process we're working with NRCS. It's a federal organization that is doing some analysis and study that we're receiving funding and free study from for the reservoirs up there and how to proceed. But it's been a difficult one to find funds for. It's over $2 million. And that was 4 years ago money to repair that dam. So priority projects in town have beat that out in the past. So.
All right, any other questions or do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as present. Printed.
All right, we got a first and a second. Is there any other questions or comments? All right, Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our public hearings. So we've got one public hearing tonight. It's a quasi judicial hearing. It's for a special event liquor permit application. And so we've got Deb Woods here to present on that one.
Evening, Mayor and City Council. Deb Woods, Deputy City Clerk, presenting the special event liquor permit application submitted by the Greater Grand Junction Sports Commission for the Rimrock Marathon, which will be held on Sunday, November the 6th, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The Sports Commission asked to provide a beer garden service for a bicycle race that starts at various locations on the Colorado National Monument and finishes at the enclosed backyard of the Fruita Community Center. Participants will receive 1 free beer ticket as part of their entry, and additional beer will be available for sale by the Greater GJ Sports Commission. Fruita Chief of Police Dave Kraus reviewed the application and issued his statement that there is nothing that would prohibit the issuance of the license being requested. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the council approve the special event liquor permit application, subject to the following 3 conditions. The entrance and exit shall be monitored closely and continuously by event staff in order to prevent alcoholic beverages from going into or out of the area. The licensee needs to be aware that they're solely responsible for control of the licensed premises in regard to alcohol possession, consumption, and adherence to state and municipal laws. And 3, all other procedures presented by the Greater Grand Junction Sports Commission will be followed. That concludes my presentation. Ben Snyder with the Greater Grand Junction Sports Commission is here this evening as the applicant's representative. So I'll turn it over to Ben for any additional comments he may have.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you, City Council, for seeing us. Just a quick clarification, this is actually a marathon, a running race, and not a bike race. I'm sorry for that confusion, but yes, we use the backyard area of the Fruita Community Center, so it's kind of fenced in area, very easy for us to control. We feel that the athletes have run a marathon and a half marathon, so they've earned a beer, and so we're excited to offer that to them. So any questions? I can answer?
Well, we may have questions, but we're going to open up to public comment first. So with that, we're going to open up to public comment. Is there anybody that'd like to speak on this? Look, Ben's looking around. Is there anybody like to speak on this item? All right, hearing none. Is there anybody online?
No comments online.
All right, then we'll bring it back. We'll close public comment and bring it back to City Council. Are there any questions, comments? Ken?
None.
None? All right. You look like you're ready. How many years has this been now?
This will be taking out the COVID year. This will be the 26th running of the race. So
Okay.
we're really excited to continue this tradition and working. Mark Mancuso and Mike Bennett have been so supportive of this. I'm very thankful for their energy to continue this event and make it as logistically feasible and efficient for the city of Fruita.
Then is this a fundraiser for CMU too, correct?
Correct. Yes, we donate to the CMU track and field team that comes out with approximately 60 volunteers for the weekend.
Okay, I already knew those answers, but I figured I had to ask them anyway. So no, probably not, because I'm gonna be out of town that weekend. My daughter runs for CMU for cross country and track, so they've got a meet over in Denver that weekend.
Registration is still open, so we're happy to have any.
It's open till the night before, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I've ran it, I think, 4 times, the half, so not the full. So, all right, with that, we're digressing. So let's get us back on task. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the application for a special events permit for the Greater Grand Junction Sports Commission to sell beer for the Rimrock Marathon at the Fruita Community Center, subject to the conditions stated by staff.
Second.
All right, we got a first and a second. Any other questions or comments? All right, Deb, would you please poll council?
Yes.
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Miller, Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, with that, we're going to move into our administrative agenda. So our first item is our 2023 budget presentation. So we've got a quality of place and community wellness and personnel and employee retention presentation. All right, Shannon's up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. As always, thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. Tonight's budget presentation will be covering our quality of place and community wellness initiatives and projects that are in the Fruita strategic plan. A lot of these you've seen before, so kind of similar to last time, I'll go over them rather quickly, but of course, feel free to stop me at any time. In addition to these projects, we're also going to be discussing our Fruita Community Center Fund, give a quick overview of public safety in our police department, and then end on person and employee retention. So one of the larger projects in the 2023 budget is a carryover from this year is the improvements to Reed Park. If you remember, this year we set aside funding to go for a match with Great Outdoors Colorado for their Resilient Communities Grant to help fund this project. We did apply for that grant twice, and unfortunately we weren't selected to move forward in the grant process. So, we went back kind of based upon our prior discussions at the City Council retreat and also other meetings. We went back to you and said, what's the appetite, or how interested are you in funding this project? Maybe I'd reduce scope using, general fund balance, conservation trust fund dollars, post-impact fee dollars, stuff like that. After that discussion, this is what staff and we've come up with for that project. We have about $950,000 budgeted for the improvements. The number originally in the budget was $1.1 million, but that's about $150,000 for design, which should be complete this year. So out of that $950,000, we do have 244 set aside for the replacement of the playground, which we actually got a grant from Playcorps for to offset some of that cost. We have $450,000 set aside to expand and replace the shelter that's currently there in the bathrooms. We think that number is close based upon recent projects. We did reach out to the city of Grand Junction and kind of got their prices on some of the shelters that they've done at Dos Rios, and we think that number will be relatively similar to that. So hopefully we can get that included somewhere close. We have $115,000 set aside for the mini pitch, $75,000 set aside for electrical upgrades at the park, and then some miscellaneous irrigation upgrades.
What's a mini pitch, please?
That's a great question, Mark.
Mark, you need the microphone so those online can hear.
No, it's the courts.
It's, and Mark, feel free to add detail to me if I miss it, but it's right now there's a basketball court that has a really bad surface. And so a mini pitch, if you've seen those, it's kind of a multi-surface court, but it's also is available for soccer, for basketball, for pickleball. So it's a multi-use pitch is because of the soccer.
Yeah. So 115. Oh.
Yeah, you do, or up at the podium.
It's also like an outdoor hockey rink. So there's sides on it. And so you can play a quicker game. The ball doesn't go out of bounds. It'll keep that space a little bit safer next to the road. So we don't have to worry about kids running out playing soccer. So it has permanent goals, has permanent hoops. So it's all built into that. And then there's 2 LED lights on that. So there can be some extended use for that after dark if we allow for that. So.
Great question. So yeah, $115,000 set aside for that. So that brings our total project costs to about $950 with some contingency dollars in there, anticipating that these costs will be close, but they could have changed since we came up with that budget number a few months ago. We did just want to point out of the $950, this does not include the skate park. We continue to actively try to pursue grants that are applicable for that, so we can help get funding with that. But I think the latest quote we got was about $600,000 to $700,000 just for the skate park if we were to do it kind of with the concrete, but there may be some cheaper options that are available. But just next year's budget, that's what's included in that. Also next year's budget, we have a dog park. Funding for a dog park set aside in South Fruita near the Dinosaur Journey Museum. The $50,000 budget includes fencing, clearing the property of debris, some of the weeds there, some of the other vegetation, dog bag dispensers and signage, and then some amenities like some agility courses for the dogs as well. We actually just received 3 quotes on the fencing, and our first quote and the low bidder that we received was from Taylor Fencing at $31,640. So that's kind of right in line with what we thought it would be. So that kind of leaves additional money for the dog bag dispensers, the amenities, and then maybe some other amenities like water for the dogs as well. So that's good.
If I could just add to that, we did also find out that the timing on that, because that's been something we wanted to get going sooner than later, but the soonest they can schedule fencing is February. So that's where we're at. The fencing's out about 6 weeks, but these companies are booked out till that period of time. So we're trying to lock that in so we could have that happen in February.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So yeah, February probably timeline for that. That project is funded also through just post-impact fees that are designated for the south side of Fruita. So in our budget policies, whenever we can, we use those fees first, then maybe go to the Conservation Trust Fund, general fund dollars, stuff like that. So it's funded exclusively just through those post-impact fees.
The question I have then, because we do have money still in the Devil's Canyon Fund too.
We do,
correct? Are we, that's earmarked though too, isn't it, for long-term for the museum? Or how does that, I mean, because we do have funds that's for that property, correct?
It is, it's essentially more than the museum. The Devil's Canyon Fund has traditionally been used for that. But we had enough post-impact fees for that area, so we just budgeted for the full dog park. But yeah, there are other funds for that area.
Yeah, great question. And you will see in the Devil's Canyon Fund, when you review the draft budget, no changes to that next year. It's just a zero kind of all across, and then just carrying over that fund balance. Another parks project that we are wrapping up design with this year is the North Mulberry Street outdoor space. We do have $450,000 reappropriate from this year to be included in next year. We'll finalize the civil design, not civic, my apologies. And then we'll go through the bid process and kind of see where we end up with bids, probably 2023.
Those bids close at the beginning of December.
I got some questions on that one.
Sure.
I mean, I hate that I'm always the bad guy on this thing. Did anybody see anybody use that thing this entire summer? Like every single time I went by there, I saw maybe 3 people at most. One time my entire summer, I saw a table full. And I know I've been against the thing from day one, but I really tried to go this summer and be like, all right, I'm really gonna be open-minded about this. I just didn't see it being used whatsoever. And I know that you're going to find what you want to find. I tried to take that out, and I really tried to just be like, okay, what is about this is so great? And I just didn't see it. And I'm just really blown away that we're still moving forward with it. And I had to say something.
Well, I'll comment
I'm
on that
just
first.
really blown away.
I've seen people whenever I'm over there because they're from Aspen Street Coffee. And I think the other side of it is we talk about community engagement. And so when we talk about all the community engagement that we did on it, and the majority of people, just like why we're doing a master plan, is they said, yeah, we want a permanent space. And it's been something, I've been on council for over 10 years, and it's been talked about by the downtown, committee for that whole time that they've been formed. So I don't think it's a matter of not being used. I think it will be used more when there's something permanent, not just a temporary. So that's kind of how I look at it. Is it's the community engagement piece, and that's why we went out and did the research in that before.
I have problems with the way that was done too, but that's it is what it is.
Where are we with the process of, is it we are going to go get the bid? Because you say here 2023 bid process and well, I guess that's just potential. Are you saying potential construction in 23, or is it potential construction of the project? Like we're not as far as that. Where are we at with it? And
So we were
given
given
approvals and all that.
So council gave us direction to have it designed and spend the money to have it designed and as one full space. So that has just wrapped up, and now we're going to bid. Those bids close at the beginning of December, and then that'll let us know what the true costs are for that particular design. What's budgeted and moving forward is what was approved in this year's budget, assuming that project would have happened faster than it did, or sooner than it did. And once we get those bids, then we would, if they're not within budget, if budget is still approved moving forward, then we would have to have that discussion on, is this enough? Do we want to put, depending on what the budget is, right? What the bids are, so that's where we're at.
Is it this is a go? Like let's just say the bid comes in at 450, it's a slam dunk, it's moving forward.
At this point, it is. You all can always change that, but we were given direction to have it designed. We wouldn't have had it designed without council giving us that direction.
Well, Mike, because that design cost was how much?
50,000.
50,
That was
right?
the grant money though, right? So that wasn't out of our.
It was a match, I think.
Yeah, it was
25,000.
So we paid 25. So yeah, so normally we're not going to ask staff to go out to get, design done unless with something we're ready to move forward on.
Gotcha. No, I do share similar concerns with James. I think there's some issues that I'd like to bring up at some point. I don't know that tonight's the night to do it. I'm fine putting it in the budget. Just to keep things moving on. I don't know if tonight's the time to dedicate.
Yeah, and
half hour,
don't-
60
that
minutes
wasn't
to
my
that
intention
kind
whatsoever,
of-
but I am kind of confused too. Like, I don't know where we're at in the process, I wanted to see what other people thought about this summer, because I'm like, when's this thing going to get used? So I don't mean to hold up everything. And as we move forward into it, it's fine. I'm trying to get on board with this thing and I'm having a really hard time. I just can't find the reason to spend that much money on a thing that I literally could count on my hand the amount of times I saw people over there.
Right.
And I just being the new guy on the block, it'd be nice to have some further discussions, especially when we start getting information. And you're saying it's closing
At early, like, I don't know, the
bid is
very
this
beginning of December. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Aaron, I want to chime in on that because I know you're the new guy, but council is constantly revolving and we constantly have long-term discussions, and this has been on discussion for 10 years. And so that's why I struggle, with the comments, is that we've been talking about this for 10 years. COVID actually pushed us into saying, hey, we got to temporarily close it. And we had a lot of feedback from our community. And so we went out to the community, paid money to do surveys. I mean, we've gone through every public engagement stuff we can go through, and we're still having this conversation. And James, you say, hey, I don't want to waste any more time tonight, but I'm frustrated because we've had this conversation for months. And so when we're sitting here and we're saying we're going out for bid, that means we've got bids, and we can either say, oh, sorry, contractors, we put this out for bid and you wasted your time to get us bids, or we can say, hey, our council has approved this to move forward. And so I don't think tonight with budget is the time to say, hey, let's dive into this, because council has already made that decision to move forward.
To ask the question. I
so-
was just curious to how this process works.
Yeah.
And we've
This
kept,
process, we've gone through the process we go through on everything, public engagement, get feedback, come back to council, ask staff to bring us information. When they bring us information, we make decisions on it. We made decisions on this, and now we're still talking about it. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm just.
More information, or that's all.
And Mayor, I'm just asking because I know this project's just highly talked about for good and for and against, and I'm just trying to be informed. That's all I'm doing right now, and to understand where it is in the process. And I
All right,
appreciate the update. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to be informed.
No, that's fine. And we've got plenty of information online with all the surveys and all the public information that came back. So
Fair enough.
Mike can send us out Mike, do you want to put that on your list? Send us out an email with a link to that,
sure.
the survey information again.
And just to be clear, since the council gave us direction for the design, and after that point, we've continued to put updates in the weekly update of every step we've been on, and in our capital presentations that Sam gave earlier this year, and then that Shannon gave. So we've tried to keep you updated on where we are in the process. And if you want to give us, if the council as a whole gives us different direction, then we'll change. But of course, you've given us direction, so we've moved on that to this point. As you know, bids have been high on most projects. So this was a estimated budget, moving in 2021 into 2022. So it'll be interesting to see what those bids come back. And obviously, if they're outside of budget, we would not be proceeding, or if you've changed course, we would not proceed. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. It actually brings up a slide that's not included in this presentation, and that's the Highway 340 design, which is in the strategic plan, but we went out to bid twice. The costs, I think, were double the original budget of 90,000. So at our workshop last week, council decided maybe evaluate if other trail options are available with that money, instead of just spending the full 182, 185 on design. So you're always subject to what could happen with the bid. And a lot of that is kind of unknown with the current conditions, right? Other notable budget changes I wanted to discuss as far as parks and recreation programs. We are adding $5,000 in our special events program for micro events. These are those events we talked about, the retreat, like the surprise and delight the community, the movie night we hosted a few weeks back, hosting Coco. We've set aside some money for those events. I think maybe we spent $800 to $900 on that movie night. So we budgeted for about 5 events, in addition to, our normal Thursday night concert, Mike Headless Chicken Festival, stuff like that. Another thing that's helping out our staff is next year, we actually took away one of the seasonal parks positions, but we're contracting out trash collection at all of our parks and trails for most of the year. So we have in budget about 9 months for a company called Clean a Lot to pick up trash at all of the parks and trails. And that frees up our staff time to work on other things kind of throughout Fruita. And as we discussed at our last budget presentation, we continue to see pretty high increases in costs for normal supplies that we use every day. So you'll see some pretty significant increases throughout the budget. One example that I wanted to give for Parks and Rec was weed control costs are up over 100% this year alone. And we kind of we're seeing that a lot of places, weed control, fuel, bleach, utilities, all that stuff. So you'll see some jumps due to some inflationary pricing kind of sprinkled throughout the budget. Next, briefly go over the Fruita Community Center budget. As you know, the community center is funded through a mix of user fees and tax revenues. For our 3% sales and use taxes, they get 1% of the 3. Through October, we're actually seeing some really good usage at the community center. We have 143 visits so far, and that exceeds how much we got in 2021 October. And then we always try to compare to 2019, which is pre-pandemic, before we had to close the community center, and we saw about 185,000 visitations. So I think we're going to end up lower than 2019 numbers, but I think we're going to be relatively closer than we were over the past couple of years for visitation to the community center. Overall, out of the community center, we have $3.5 million in revenues between sales and use tax projections and also user fees. This is actually a decrease over what we estimate will end the year for 2022, and that's due to some of those decreases maybe in use taxes that we'll see next year, like on motor vehicles, et cetera. And then next year, as far as expenses, we are spending some of our fund balance on one-time capital projects to the community center. We're funding the slide that goes in and out the building. That was included in the original design, and that's about $850,000. So you'll see use of fund balance throughout a lot of funds in the budget. This is one of the first times we've done it in the community center recently. So capital expenses, it's always our goal to spend at least 10% of current year revenues on capital, whether it's projects in the general fund or capital projects and equipment in the community center fund. And next year we have about 1.2 million set aside just for capital expenses. The bulk of those, like I was saying, is the water slide. We're also purchasing the solar panels that are currently on top of the community center. They're owned by a third party who's leasing them to us, and I think they need to sell those. So we're going to purchase those, and hopefully we'll see some utility savings next year. Also going to replace all the locker room tile, resurface the gym floor, and put the F Gear logo on it. Right now it's got the older Fruita logo. So that'll be a good addition. And then we have also miscellaneous capital equipment we'll be replacing, fitness equipment, exercise bikes, etc. Again, we're discussing challenges. Stop me if you've heard this before, but utility costs are going up quite a bit. In fact, at a future meeting, you'll probably see a contingency amendment for the Fruita Community Center just to cover increased costs of utilities. We think it could be $200,000 this year due to the peak pricing that some of our providers are issuing. So we'll probably need to use most of our contingency on that, and also for fuel. Might see it in the sewer fund too, because we could reach up to $250,000 in utilities costs just for the plant out there. So seeing a lot of increases in that. Again, supplies and equipment, bleach costs have went up $37 a barrel just this year. And also for minimum wage, we do have 10% increase budgeted. I think the total is around 9%, but we put 10% for minimum wage staff, and they have a lot of minimum wage staff, the front desk and stuff like that. So it includes a 10% increase next year. Moving on to public safety. Can't talk about quality of place without talking about our police department. So over the next year, you'll see 8% increase in expenses overall for the police department. Right now it's a $2.9 million budget in the draft budget, but I think that's going to be just a tad over 3 million by the time we add the new police officer. As we discussed at our workshop last week, we applied for a federal grant to help fund 2 police officers that specialize, or not specialize, but focus on community engagement outreach. Unfortunately, that grant was not awarded. Those federal grants tend to be very competitive. So it was not awarded, but we are going to add 1 new sworn officer in our budget. So I think that number will probably increase to about $3 million for the police department as a whole. Communication center is going up to $300,000 a year. Luckily, we do have the county public safety sales tax dollars to offset that. We also have some capital purchases new patrol vehicle, taser replacement, computers, using those public safety dollars that we have designated for the police department. The old tasers. Do we recycle? Can you recycle tasers? I'll repeat him. Council gets first shot.
Found them right under the desk here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wait, Ken, you were gonna say what? No.
Great question. And finally, yeah, another budget highlight will be including a new police officer in the budget. So probably go up to about $3 million for the program as a whole. Some of the photos I got, that was from National Night Out at Prospector Park in Comstock, which is always a great event for our police officers to attend. So that wraps up our quality of place portion of the presentation. Any questions before I move on to personnel?
Can you tell me how many shelters or what the shelter improvements, what does that look like at Reed Park?
I believe it's a full renovation of the shelter, especially new bathrooms too, making the bathrooms ADA compliant. But Mark, you want to add that? Okay.
So the new shelter is going to look similar to the South Little Saltwash Park. So it's got the restrooms and the shelter on that. So it's going to move closer to the playground, closer to the street side. So that will be new. The existing shelter that's there will stay. We're not messing with that one at all. It will stay. And then we're putting one on the north side of Reed Park as well.
Great, thank you.
Great.
850 grand for a water slide?
Yeah.
Blows my mind, like how, tell me about that.
Sure. Yeah. So it was included. Oh, Mark's got a mic. Okay.
So I reached out to Perkins and Will. They did the original design for the rec center, so they're very familiar with that project. It's just the estimated cost coming through is that $850,000. We do have existing infrastructure already built into that. So I'm hoping once it goes out to bid, it won't be as high, right? So I think they're just bidding that out without some of the pre-existing. There's a pump placement, there's piping already in place. We've got the outdoor surge pit already there. So we're hoping that that cost comes down, but
If we could step back a little bit further, when the building was built and designed, there was a large water slide that goes out of the building and then comes in. So this is not like just your slide into the pool. So it goes outside, comes back in, and then on the east side of the of the pool area, so where the lanes are that people are swimming back and forth, there's an area where that slide comes in, and it's a pool a new pool that you kind of end into, not that you're swimming in, but the slide comes into, so it doesn't come into the existing pool. That was, and this was before my time, but when the city went to construction for the community center, that was engineered out. Since then, there's been $1 million that has been that was designated only for a new amenity for the community center, so not for maintenance and not for operations. And this was the amenity that we've been waiting to do. And then when we went through the frost, it still landed, as something that the community was interested in. So that's where that's coming from. It's $1 million that Margaret could speak to more clearly if you need to about why that was, where that came from, but it's only for a new amenity at the community center.
Yeah, great question. When I did this presentation last year, I couldn't believe playground equipment was $100,000 each, but
It just seems very expensive for
Oh, yeah.
a slide.
absolutely.
And I get that it would be fun. They're all fun. But like, how much more money will that generate for us? Like, what's the reward benefit?
Happiness, a whole bunch of kids.
I'm not a trust fund baby. So
Yeah,
like that's just like, holy crap, that's a ton of money for just it's fun.
There's nothing cheap at the community center. Anytime there's a new amenity or a replacement, it's pretty expensive.
Will the new slide exit, is that going to be is that part of the construction too? That's going to be dug out too?
So it's all surface mounted, so it will go out and then it ends just on the surface, just like a 15-foot, 20-foot run out where they'll stop. So we're gonna try to design that where the run out starts a little bit further outside of the building, so it doesn't impact the guards room or some of that area, because it is pretty tight in there.
There were 3 new amenities looked into during the master planning process, and kind of since, and we got pricing on some of those. And one was a outdoor rock climbing wall that was on one side of the building with kind of a covered area. The other was expanding from the pool area, outdoor pool area to, which was for kind of like a spray park that would be fenced in as part of the, and then this one's been something the community's been asking for since it ended up being pulled out. And because when they all came in, some of those came over $1 million, and this one was within, and it was a all year round use versus a summertime use. So that was kind of the process that went into it that got us
So
to
to
that.
start inside, tube outside, come back in.
Yeah, kind of
Whatever.
flow outside, come
And then
back
end
in,
inside.
like it's an enclosed tube, right?
So does it end in the kiddie area? Sorry for keeping the questions.
So it has its own area it ends in. That's part of the cost, right?
And where will they put it in? So it's in the lanes?
No, so it's gonna end right before the maintenance door. So it's right up against that east wall.
So it doesn't end in the
Oh.
existing pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions before I move into?
All right, great. Thank you. Yeah, so this portion of the presentation will cover personnel and specifically the strategic plan area of our goal to be the employer of choice. And I just wanted to put this note in there, employees continue to be our greatest asset. They're the one that clean up our parks, work as lifeguards at the pool, patrol our streets, all of that. So, it's always our goal, especially as a leadership team, to do what we can for employee retention efforts. You can probably see that throughout the budget. So I apologize. There is a lot of text on these next couple slides. Yeah, it's a good font size. That's what I like to hear. But these are things that I wanted to cover, especially because we do have new members, 4 new members on the council this year. And next year, in 2023 is continued implementation of our market-based pay plan. So this was a pay plan that we essentially created in 2019. It was one of my first projects that I worked on when I started here. And, we went through a lot of different iterations of it, but the goal for our organization as a whole was we want to be competitive with our peers across the state. So we evaluated a variety of different ways that people administer pay plans, whether it's step plans, grade type plans. And we talked to a bunch of different organizations that were transitioning to these market-based plan where you compare each job to the same job across the state. And essentially your data, your salary information for that job is basically what employers across the state pay, because those are our competitors. Right. So we created this pay plan. We first started with raises and pay changes in 2020. And since then, we've been kind of working our way through trying to get our employees closer to the market range for their position, which is essentially just what they're paid throughout the state, 85 to 100% of that rate. We use a variety of data for this. We get a salary survey from the Colorado Municipal League. I believe all municipalities, maybe minus 2 or 3, are part of CML. So some of these positions we get about well over 100 responses. And I think that gives us a good glimpse of what people are paid in those positions throughout the state. And yeah, and like I was saying, each position we compare to the same position, but we also look, where are the job descriptions, where are the duties, where are the requirements, what are the experience for those positions. Late last year, we actually got a grant from AG&C to hire a consultant to finalize this pay plan, because we were kind of struggling with a few aspects. One of those were, how do we incorporate performance into the plan? The goal is, once you're proficient in your job, and you've been there for 3 to 5 years, you get paid the market rate for that position. So we hired a consultant, compensation studio. She was great to work with, and she kind of finalized the details of the pay plan for us and finalized how we can incorporate performance increases into the budget as well. So this is actually the first year that we're including performance increases. Employees were rated on 3 different areas. I think it was needs improvement, meets or satisfactions. Yep, successful, and then exceeds expectations. So in the draft budget, we have 0% raises for the people that need improvement, which there were none, which is a great sign, 3% for meets, and then 5% for those that exceeded expectations. So this year, for the first time, employees are budgeted to get a performance increase and a market increase as well. So depending upon where their employee assessment kind of fell, they'll get that, and how their position changed year over year. Because it's our goal to get people farther along in the market, get them close to what their peers are making throughout the state, but also get them further along. So that's where the performance piece kind of comes in. It's ironic because we've been talking to a lot of organizations, and this is the year that actually everyone went away from performance increases because they can't keep their employees. They're just doing straight mid-year increases, 10%. Some organizations are pitching 15% January 1. It's an interesting time for the labor market, and it's an interesting time because it's so competitive.
I think one thing to clarify is that when the market change per position is just keeping with the same spot in the market range they're in now, which is on the low end of the market range, if at that point. So it's not moving forward in the market range. It's just keeping whole with the market shift, right? And some positions did not increase, and then some did increase, and they all have a different market shift. So what we built it on that, so that the market shift is just keeping whole with this year, with the new data, and then to have some movement ahead in the market range. That's where the performance piece comes in. So essentially, if we were just doing across the board, it would be more than the market shift, and because we were incorporating that into the performance shift to be able to move ahead. And we do have, I mean, if you'd like, we have an example. We can walk through how that kind of works.
Yeah, be happy to walk through an example. Some positions too, we're seeing pretty significant increases. I think it's just kind of the not post, but kind of the COVID environment. I wrote down a few examples. Custodians, they're up over 10% over the prior year, which makes sense because as COVID happened, you have a need for additional custodial work. Maintenance workers, whether it's parks, public works, building maintenance, those are positions that are also increasing rather significantly too, because I think the competition for those positions are just getting more and more. It makes it difficult for us to fill some of those positions as well. Police officers are up 5% from the previous year. So on average, the market changed about maybe 4.5%. And then people would get their performance increase on top of that. But yeah, have an example, or I can keep on moving along, whatever you guys think.
I do have a question. Recognizing that as a municipality, some positions are unique, police, fire, those sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
But positions that are not unique to municipality, are they only compared to other municipalities, or are they also compared to private sector?
They are, yeah. And this is one of the questions we actually hired the consultant to work on. What do we do with some of these positions that do have, private sector counterparts? And we talked a lot about that. And there is some data out there that she provided where we could compare to those positions. But for our purposes, we just looked at the municipal examples because those are our biggest competitors for employees and decided to keep it with those. But yeah, we talked about that a lot. And we talked about incorporating maybe the private examples, but we decided against that.
But it's a great question, Matthew, because we're watching it really close on the maintenance workers in parks and public works.
Parks, facility, maintenance, those kind of positions.
Because once you get to a certain level of position at the city, you really are competing with other municipalities, and certain positions like those, you're competing with the area, right? And the types of jobs that are out. And that's been a tougher one for us to to keep up with, because I mean, just as you all see, when you see what typical minimum wage jobs or even fast food jobs and the hourly rate, I mean, has gotten close to what a lot of professional jobs are at some of those starting areas of maintenance workers. So it is one we're kind of keeping tabs on. At the time, we made that decision based on working with that consultant, but we're kind of watching it closely because we're seeing, that's where we see some of the pressure sometimes for people, you know, that could more easily leave when we take a lot of time into training and getting people ready for those positions. So it's hard to replace them. It costs to replace those positions.
It's a 9-month to a year investment.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's something I think, especially the way things have been going, that we have to watch really closely and might have to make some adaptations to in the future, depending on how that trends.
Right. And we talked, I mean, we went through this back and forth. No data set is perfect, right? I mean, this is just municipal data, doesn't include, you know, county data. Some organizations focus on a regional approach. We just were a part of Delta's salary survey, which they're actually going to administer a pay plan that's pretty much identical to this. They just use Western Slope kind of counterparts or similar size organizations. It's something that I think all organizations struggle with, and there's no pay plan that's perfect, as our HR director always likes to say. So I think this is something that we've been proud of, but working on, you know, and always trying to improve.
Yeah, one of the things we're really proud of is prior to 2019, we spent over a year working with the CML data and updating, and it's been a continuous process since, but updating all of our job descriptions to make sure that we're making the right comparisons, because as you know, titles don't go across the board very well, but duties that and what the pay is for those does. We learned a lot at that point in time when we were getting started. The reason why we did not go external at the start was because Montrose had just gone through an external study. So they had paid over $30,000 for a consultant to come in and do a study. When it was implemented, they had a lot of issues and they switched to this market-based format. So we learned a lot about the things that worked well with their study and then the things that they were implementing and those reasons why. And so we were able to start crafting ourselves. So we got the $5,000 grant from AGNC, and I think I
spent maybe over $5,000.
Yeah, just over 5,000 just to have a professional come in and kind of clean it up. But we did most of that going through in-house and utilizing other studies instead of going out and, you know, spending 30,000 on a comparison. And then nice thing with CML, because we're members, is that data, we participate in all those cities. I think every conference they mention like 1 or 2, you know, not being members. So it's pretty much every city. And then Odette keys in all of our data, and each of those cities key that, and you have to change job descriptions and things like that. So the nice thing is building it around that. We know we always have that data to review each year without having to go out with, there are some employers councils that you have to pay memberships to, and you get certain data. And then we participate in every time we're asked, like Delta and others, to participate in their studies that they are paying a consulting group to do. We always participate, because if you participate, they share the study with us, and then we're able to, you know, kind of watch and see if there's any nuances to those that we'd want to incorporate or consider into ours.
Great. All right. So what this all kind of ends up at, we're looking at across all funds, it's about a 7.76% increase over the current year. Again, the average market change was about 4%. And by the time you add the performance evaluations of 3 to 5%, it probably gets you closer to that 7, almost 8% number. And that includes an increase of 10% for all minimum wage employees, which we do have a lot of over at the community center and other places as well. So yeah, any questions on the pay plan? Or I have that police officer example, or we can just go right through whatever you think.
Any questions?
All right. Well, moving on from the pay plan, we do have a few new positions included in the budget. The police officer that we discussed, we have an administrative tech for the city manager's office and administration, and we have the building department, which includes our chief building official, and 2 building inspectors to be hired at some point next year. Although those building positions are new to us, they are currently at the county as we contracted them, so they're getting paid for one way or another, but next year it'll be here to the city. Speaking of being the employer of choice, we do offer a very competitive benefits package, which I think also attracts employees to Fruita, not just the pay that we've been working on. And actually right now is a great time to be giving an overview on personnel, because we actually just did administer a survey among all employees on employee benefits, just to hear from them just how they feel about our general benefits package, but also we threw in some questions on employee morale, core behaviors, stuff like that. So very excited to share some of this data with you that we got from the benefits survey. If you remember, we did do one in 2020. It was March, and we shut down about a week later. So we only got, yeah, it was tough. It was actually for my capstone report for graduate school. So that was great. But luckily they gave me some exceptions because COVID. But we got 42 out of about 72 responses. This year we got 68. So I think this is very representative of our employee base. And overall, I think the responses are very, very positive.
Were there areas that needed improvement? That would be the council.
Sure.
What council? Yeah.
I don't know how you do a 3%. That's.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for the benefits? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've, I was trying to remember if I mentioned this before, so stop me if I start talking about something I've already told you recently, but we've been very fortunate to be part of CEBT, and it's, we were with Rocky Mountain, health plans for many years, I think almost 40 years. And every year we would get increases of, over 10%. And then we'd usually try and negotiate down. We would take pricing from other private providers, and they were usually pretty low, but everybody we talked to that had switched to them had the massive jump the second year. Well, CEBT is it's unique for cities and special districts to be able to join, and it's just in Colorado. And they were able to show us that throughout their whole network, they hadn't had over a 10% increase over 10 years straight, which is pretty impressive during the years what we were having. They also are able to get the numbers. Their board makes the decisions for January of every year and July. So we used to be up at this point still waiting, like, well, this is what we're estimating, but we're still negotiating the contracts. We did have we had a couple of years where we had some serious claims, unfortunately, throughout the organization. Unfortunately for those people who had serious claims, but that even with those kind of pieces, we had, like 7%, 8%, we were in those types of numbers. So but it's been great. This is a 3%, and the family deductible dropped from 4,500 to 3,000. I mean, it's pretty incredible. Yeah, it's real. And they continue to add benefits. So they have Surgery Plus, which if you have certain surgeries that you have to have, and you go through the Surgery Plus program, so this is something they just have a partnership with, then you're sent to typically a large area like Denver or Salt Lake, and you don't pay a cent. They cover your travel, they cover the whole surgery, they cover, it's a pretty incredible piece. And that's not part of our health plan. It's just part of being a member of CEBT. So
we swap out the rec membership.
Did we talk to other communities that to confirm that they're not lying to us? Like that's
Oh yeah,
it's too good to be true. What you're saying is too good to be true.
Yeah. So it's we talked to, when we first looked into them, we got the list, and it's similar to it's not as CML pretty much has every city, but it's a massive amount of the smaller. Now, some of the large cities, like large organizations, go through they make the determination to be self-insured when you have so many employees, where you might have an administer health insurance company, but you're really paying those claims. It might look like Blue Cross Blue Shield, but the organization is. But for most medium size and smaller, there are many through Colorado that are members. So we were able to talk to quite a few before we made that decision. And even right now, there's a CML provides the listserv. So all the city managers are on one, and you see those questions each year about what are people experiencing. And there was just a city, I think it was Lone Tree, that was looking at CEBT. They had not been a member. And even before I could respond, there were 20 plus responses, which you don't usually get that many responses, right, for every question. And just raving about how well CEBT's been. They're able, I think, because of some of the contracts they have, and because they're focused. They're part of United Healthcare as the broader network. So we don't have any issues as well. We used to have issues when we were with Rocky Mountain to save money. We started becoming part of like some of the smaller area plans, but then we didn't have access at one point to even Family Health West. We only, currently, because they're part of such a large network, pretty much everything in the valley is considered in network. And even if you're traveling, it works out pretty well. So it sounded similar to us, and this is our 4th year on it. Yeah, so we started in 2019. So we've experienced it's been great. I mean, it's hard not, usually don't sing praises of something like this, but it's worked out really well. We were excited to have a 3% this year, because that's definitely below average right now for most plans.
Any other questions?
All right.
I was going to say, I was asking about, what was the dissatisfaction if we had 6%? Is there any one thing that employees are looking for that they're not feeling like they're getting here at the city?
Right. Well, I think for most of our benefits, they are ranked really high. You know, some of the ones that have asked for attention in the past was on retirement benefits. We do give a 4.5% match to 401A, or not match, just a 4.5% contribution. And then employees can add another 457 account, where if they contribute 1.5%, the city will also contribute 1.5%. So it brings you to 6% from the city, as long as you're doing that. So that was something we just started this year. Unfortunately, we haven't got as much participation in that as we thought we would. So, we've talked about this internally. It's like, when we go and do these budget presentations, maybe we need to go to each department and kind of, hey, we have this program. If you haven't heard about it, there's always things going out. So maybe we just try to reach people where they're at. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was another thing from the survey. It's, we try to figure out how do they prefer receiving their information? What's the best way to reach them? So I think, we have some work to do moving forward, just to make sure that they're aware of some of these benefits. It can be a lot at times, as you're pouring through like a benefits brochure, but trying to inform more people of that. So yeah.
Kind of like a budget presentation.
Exactly. Hey, thanks. I only got a couple more, Joel. But health insurance is our highest ranked benefit among employees. 69% expressed satisfaction with it. No changes to our dental insurance next year. So that 3% that you saw for health insurance is our only change when it comes to benefits. And similar to health insurance, our employees are very satisfied with the dental insurance that the city of Fruita provides, 65%. This is one where they still view this as a priority. We ask a question, putting aside compensation, what would you prioritize? Or what would you like us to prioritize in the future? And we put things like health insurance, dental insurance, other benefits, PTO, sick time, stuff like that. Retirement costs is always the one that kind of rises to the top. So we were very excited last year when council approved the additional 1.5% to be given to employees as long as they contribute at least 1.5%. And hopefully we'll get some more enrollment on that as we move forward in the future. But that's one of the ones that are kind of viewed as more of a priority among employees. Briefly, I just want to end on some other high notes from the employee benefits survey. We talk a lot about pay is important to retain employees, benefits are important, but at the same time, I think like culture, the organizational culture, is also very important. I think we have a great culture here at the city of Fruita. So, and I think that's also shown in our benefits survey. So we ask questions about our core values, fun, respectful, united, innovative, transparent, and authentic. And most employees really relate to those core values and they feel like that is a part of their everyday work life, which is great. So a few statistics I put on here. Most employees have fun at work daily or weekly. 88%.
Awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Or monthly or yearly.
We did have a couple that said never, but it's okay.
They said no. But the sewer, like our sewer guy, sorry.
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to ask Kimberly.
Wait, which department were they in? No.
The survey is completely voluntary. We do collect demographic information.
And
but
anonymous.
that's all. It's completely anonymous because we want everyone to respond and very happy with the response rate. Another thing we asked, is teamwork important to not only for your program, but also the organization as a whole? 88% said that it is, which is very good. And 64% of employees said that they feel respected at work, working for the city of Fruita.
Yeah.
I was waiting for Joel.
36.
You have the
Yeah,
36%.
Now, I will say these results are kind of lower than anticipated because we do get a lot of neutrals. Now, we do have some that are upset and they share those frustrations. But that's not the majority, not even close to it, but there are a lot of neutrals which may weigh down the overall results. 68% though, still great, and very positive looking forward.
One of our efforts, because it's fairly new that we've started surveying how people feel related to all the values, the core values. So we're trying to find ways and make goals internally on seeing those trends increase. So that would be one that we really want to see increase. And the other, the big focus we're putting in next year through a process called the 4 disciplines of execution is we are going through a process for communication throughout the organization internally. So we have some internal and external goals, of course. External, you see many of those through the strategic plan, but internally we're trying to work on that. And we're going to start adding into that survey, because that's something all organizations, almost every organization talks about more communication or better communication. And so we've been able to implement quite a few new things this year, much to the help of Ciara in that new role. Even internally, you've seen a lot of the external, but there's a lot of internal communication, and then all the department directors are working alongside with Ciara and then with their teams. And basically, I won't give you the long version, but the short version is every team goes through this. It's a pretty simple process. Shannon worked on it at Mesa County in the Human Services. They utilize that. I implemented this in Hickory when I was there, North Carolina, and I followed a few cities that have been very successful with it, and I've been really impressed because they're still using it after more than 10 years and seeing success. A good example is Gilbert, Arizona. But it allows for each team to pick their lead and lag measures, essentially, that are helping with increases in it. And it's a standing 10-minute weekly. It's not called a meeting, but where everybody makes a quick commitment to each other, and there's a very simple scoreboard. And then as you try things that are lead measures, if you think about dieting, a lead measure would be, I'm going to eat a certain way, or I'm going to exercise a certain amount, because that's something you control. The lag measures the weight, right? So we're looking at ways to measure the lag from just how people view internal communication. We want to add that in our 4-year surveys too. Well, we already do with external communication. We want to see those numbers moving. And then there's individual efforts with each team to move forward. So we're pretty excited about that. And we want to, the goal for that focus is try and pick one big thing, which is communication. But in addition to that, a number of the efforts we're working on, we hope to see continue to see those core value responses not decrease, but continue to increase.
Only 2 more that I wanted to touch upon, and as you were asking earlier, Mayor Kincaid, what maybe is an area where we could improve, I think in addition to those traditional benefits, half of our employees, a little over half rated their work-life balance as good or excellent, which may be an opportunity. Maybe we can see if we can improve that in future surveys. And one statistic that I'm especially proud of is called a Net Promoter Score, which how likely are you to refer working for the city of Fruita to a friend or colleague, someone that's close to this person? It kind of measures like how they feel about the organization as a whole, because they obviously value this person, their friend or colleague. Would they refer their organization to them? 68% of respondents said they would. You determine your Net Promoter Score by taking how many people would minus how many wouldn't, and that's about 60%. Which is really good. The best Net Promoter Score, some organizations like Apple, Google, they're all over 70%. So we're close to that, but I think it's a good measure of how employees feel as a whole working for the city of Fruita. The only other thing that we needed to touch on was we did send out a recommendation for a holiday last Friday, and I didn't get to include my slides before the packet went out, but we did send over a staff recommendation.
Yeah, and so sent that out to you. Hopefully the chart or the simple spreadsheet was just in the body of the email to keep that simple. The day after we had the meeting, so last Wednesday, we had our leadership team with all the department directors, and I kind of just brought that up as a question of what their thoughts were between a floating holiday and a permanent holiday. And it was overwhelming from the group, or I think it was even unanimous, of having a permanent holiday versus the floating. When we were looking at the two that are there from a standpoint, I think there's more reasons to make the decision of this, so I want to clarify that, but from just a standpoint of timing during the year, the Juneteenth definitely landed better as compared to the other holidays. The one that stands out the most that we talked about at the workshop that's different is Good Friday from the other groups. So if we were looking at alignment, it would be Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Juneteenth, and switching from Good Friday. From an organizational standpoint, again, not based on the holidays themselves. That's been a popular one among employees just from because of the timing of it in the year. But we recommend, as we have budgeted, one additional holiday, and if we're only making that one change, we would recommend that be Juneteenth. But look, it's definitely up to you if you would like to have a discussion on that.
Questions, comments on that one?
So
Are we being asked to make that decision tonight?
Just wants our input.
Well, we had the workshop discussion. You asked for the info to be sent out. It depends when you want to make it, but
I mean, he sent it out, so if now's just as good a time as any to.
it's up to you all. We need to make it during this budget process.
Right.
That's what we do. Yeah.
So Junction has 11 holidays and we have 11, including that
Discretionary, yeah. Which that discretionary day, which we use, it's basically, the one thing that this doesn't show is each organization accrues differently. So you may accrue more hours of vacation at Junction than you do here. We do not have all those accruals. We have never really treated that. I mean, in some ways it's very similar, but we haven't treated the discretionary day as a floating holiday per se. I mean, it's just, it's a vacation day that doesn't carry forward. So you can use it just as a vacation day, just typically use it first because vacation can roll forward versus a discretion.
So other cities may have that. It just won't show up in the holiday.
We asked for floating holidays and nobody had.
Oh, okay.
So it's a tool for us to have better recruiting because. So what you're recommending is that we have an 11th holiday. Juneteenth is what you guys are suggesting. That puts us on an even playing field. But then with having this floating, that gives us the advantage over other municipalities.
Yeah, I would say so. Palisade has one. It kind of puts us in par with Palisade if you include the discretionary, and then it puts us one above if you're including the discretionary with Junction and Mesa County, right? So
I'm embarrassed to ask this. From a timing schedule, when is Good Friday compared to Martin Luther King Day?
Friday floats because
It does.
Okay.
It's usually,
It's the Friday before Easter.
February.
The moon determines.
Right.
It's a moon and Jesus.
before Easter.
Yeah, the Friday before.
Okay, that helps me.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
There's no embarrassment about that. No,
No, it actually, yeah, it's different every year.
but Friday before Easter.
and Martin Luther King Jr. Day is in January or January, mid-January. Yeah.
Easter's crazy. Like it'll fluctuate like.
Yeah, it could be March or April. I mean, it could be.
My holidays, it can be like 8, 9 weeks, so.
Calculation.
Yeah.
Can I
One day. No.
revert back? Like, can we come back to this in just a second? But I actually had a question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
About the 52% work and balance. I think
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, just given like the kind of job you're doing. Like you're all
Absolutely.
here and you went to the tour at 6 and we might be here until 9, and that's 3 hours in addition to whatever. So that can play into a difficulty of maintaining that balance, just given the job that it is.
Absolutely.
But the question that I have is, when you spend like a night like this at a meeting or whatever, is that something that you can, do you not have to come in for 3 hours? Can you make it like take it off during the week or even during the month where that's my question. Is
No,
that
it's-
how that works?
Great
It's a
question.
great question. So you're probably familiar, like with most organizations, you have exempt and non-exempt employees, and that's based on Fair Labor Standards Act. And so essentially, everybody's here is in that exempt where it doesn't, you're not necessarily, if you're hourly, right, then it's overtime or, those types of things. If you're exempt, it doesn't fluctuate. It's the same, right? Same pay for that period of time. Our culture, what we strive to do, but we don't promise you get minute for minute back. It's part of, which is part of being exempt, right? You do work more at times but we do our best to let people, just like you said, if you've spent a number of hours in night meetings, still getting your work done and making sure things are covered to try and be able to gain some of that time back. Now, it's definitely not minute for minute. It's tracked by supervisors, making sure people are, getting their job done and employees letting their supervisor know that, hey, I work this. Now, obviously, if it's hour to hour, or if you're hourly, then we try to actually not just go straight into overtime. If we can rearrange the schedule and let someone be off because they had to work a long weekend. But for the most part, it's people like on the leadership team that are here that are putting those hours in on different times. And we try to work that through, but it's definitely still not, it's one of our values is to, one, never say no to vacation, assuming there isn't something, we can't, the police department can't not function, at a given time, but we try to say yes all the time. And then we, and make sure things are covered and work. And when people spend a lot of time at night, then we try to find those ways to take that time at another point. So.
I want to go back just a little bit further to the new positions. And this isn't a new position question, but I was trying to wait for the right place to ask it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I remember earlier, I don't know, it was probably a few months back, we were talking about that we were having a hard time with city work staffing. Have we solved that? Have we hired people to help with arts team and all that stuff? And
Our parks.
the parks, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't know the right term for it, but I remember for a while there, we were kind of short staffed, and did we ever address that? Did we have it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think our seasonal positions continue to be difficult to fill. And that was one thing that we started a few months ago, is by contracting out that trash collection services. That frees up our, full-time staff or permanent part-time staff to be able to do other things in parks. And also next year, one it's not a new position, but it's a conversion. We are moving a seasonal parks worker to a permanent part-time worker, so they work throughout the year. And we think that'll help with recruitment, but yeah, some of those positions like the seasonal parks position, we just haven't been able to fill. So we tried to come up with some creative ways like the trash collection to kind of make it easier for other employees.
And that's working.
Yeah.
Because originally the first company we hired wasn't.
The company we
Trash.
first hired for Mulberry only did not
Yeah.
work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So we've moved past that and we fixed
Yeah.
it. Okay.
This
good.
is a group that's not only, they do pick up there, but they're picking up at all the parks. And then that way the park staff that we do have don't have to spend time on that and they can. But it's a great question, James, because and it's one thing that we weren't alone in experiencing. Most cities and even other types of organizations were having a hard time with the seasonals. Grand Junction was having a hard time with seasonals. County, cities across the state, because it's one of those where you have to, it's working less than 6 months a year, but at a 40-hour-a-week schedule. Now, it's great for us in spring to fall because there's work that only happens at that point in time. But finding ourselves not having a hard time to fill them, or what was happening is we'd fill them, but as soon as they find a full-time job, then they'd leave. And so then we're kind of down again and we just trained them for whatever. So that conversion, we believe, will help because we do have more demand for like a all year round part-time person. And so between the conversion and the contracting of trash, we're hoping that helps those that we do have on that permanent. But it's something that's definitely a challenge with some of that work when it really picks up in the, once the weeds and the grass starts growing. And
That's why I just was curious.
No,
It's been in the back of my head for a while because gosh, those guys work so hard and I'd hate to see I could only imagine the frustration that some of them go through. So
How is
that's
the
great.
cost of that shaking out? Like, are we spending the same amount on that contract as we would an employee or?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a slight increase. We typically budget around $21,000 for a seasonal employee. And I think Clean a Lot is the company we're using. It's $2,800 a month. So it'll be a little bit of an increase, but we're only going to use them 9 months out of the year because when it's winter, things kind of slow down. Although if there's a need in the future, we can evaluate that. But yeah, it's a slight cost difference. And we did actually, in this year's budget, we converted a permanent part-time to a full-time.
Oh, right.
That's been a great addition for parks as well. So continue to invest in staffing. And if we can't fill those seasonal, maybe try other things that could help out with their workload. Great question.
I have a couple things. On your personnel review slide.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where that's all putting in, and I see that it says strategic plan goal, and that might be official, but
right.
I think that's a challenge to read, be the employer of choice. I think that's a conflicting statement with business. I think we need to be like the ideal employer or an ideal employer or a desirable employer, but being the number one, that just seems a little conflicting with our community, which we want them to be the number one. I don't know that we want to like compete. I don't know. That's just kind of just being transparent with for transparency reasons. It's like, I'd like to see something a little different.
I think in the strategic plan, it's be a employer of choice. So maybe
That would be awesome if it is, because
it's,
and I don't want to compete with business.
Or you could clarify like amongst municipalities.
No, just if
Because
it's.
that's more how I interpreted it. I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily read it as like in the valley.
Well, what Mike's saying is be an employer of choice.
Yeah.
That is.
I do.
That's completely different.
Oh, yeah.
than
yeah.
this.
And that's
I would, great, because I don't want to.
That's a good point, but it is.
We're not here to fight with other employees. We want businesses to come here.
Yeah.
Because it's a desirable place to be and not like, oh, sweet, now we have to
I'm a better employee.
Yeah. Oh, and before I forget, Mark mentioned to me that the other difference with contracting the trash services is that's 7 days a week. So we're scheduling people to do that as well on Saturday and Sunday. And that's helped out because the group comes through and does that all,
It's nice to
7
have
days a
wash your hands of that. And it's
Yeah.
kind of a just here, you guys take this and we don't have to
I
deal
feel
with
like
it.
that's a good
A
investment.
little bit of extra money is worth it, I think, on that.
If they keep to to the performance, it's great because it's the easiest to contract out as opposed to, training people on the irrigation system and training people, like we want those people in-house that are able to respond quickly and stay on it and be more proactive than reactive.
Some other just general, is now the time to, there's other general budget questions, Mayor?
I mean, yeah, we're here for budget discussion, so.
I just want to ask, it's related to some of these things, but it's more, I've been looking at, of course, our main budget.
Absolutely.
Number one is when are we going to see an updated budget with that?
Yeah,
percentage
absolutely.
Changes.
Yeah, so the first reading is November 15th, so we'll get the packet out next Thursday because we have Veterans Day off, which is next Friday, so you'll see an updated one. I think we'll only be able to include the percentage changes over actuals instead of both, just because the formatting, we'd have to make things smaller. But if that's the number that you want to include, then that's an easy change for
I
us
think
to
that's
make.
a much more valuable comparison is
Sure.
from estimated 22 versus 23 budget.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's with some of the philosophies behind some of the budgeting things? Because for example, I can go find an exact one, but
Right.
we had a budget for 12,000. We only spent 3,000. So the budget's 12. To me, like you're fluffing the budget. Like if you only spent 35, to me, when I'm budgeting with
Right.
clients, you got to justify $9,000 up again. What's the philosophy that you guys are using? Because I saw that quite a bit.
Sure.
That you have the 22 budget, spent little of that budget in 22, and now we're just pumping it back up. To me, that means I was expecting like 5 or maybe 6, but we're at 12.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. And, we did the estimated actuals last month in preparation of this draft budget. So we'll continue to update that information, but you're right. There are some things, whether it's due to staffing issues, we have things budgeted for that are just not able to accomplish. I can think of a few examples, right off the top of my head. We have some funding that we set aside for landscaping supplies and open space. We've had some open space issues this year with trails flooding. We haven't been able to use that money, but that's money we're actually going to move over for trails maintenance for some other needs that we have across, our open space trails throughout Fruita. So yeah, it kind of just depends on the specific line item. Those are just a few examples that I can think of, but yeah, we can get updated actuals. The information's not perfect just because it's at a point in time. So it could be like towards the end of the year, some of that money gets spent down, or we keep it the same because maybe there are other changes or maybe things.
It's a great question. It's when we start the budget process, we go line by line with each department. And we kind of look at where we're at currently in the year and where we expect to be at the end of the year. And when we hit those, two things. We'll hit line items that are already, we're like reaching the line item, right? And we're halfway through the year and why is this, what's happening? A few things happen sometimes. Sometimes that's a good checkpoint that we've been coding it to the wrong line item. Like it might be something like, supplies and, versus a very specific line item that goes to. So we'll straighten those out. And then some of the other ones we run into are sometimes it's something that we spend a lot of it at a different time of year, right? So there are a few areas where we spend a lot at the end of the year, not a lot, but like that's when that happens. There's things at the community center, for example, where we buy in bulk at the beginning of the year, or it's somewhere else where it's at the end of the year. And then there are times where, like what Shannon said, as we're now going through that, it's something that not just hasn't been done yet, but wasn't able to be done. And then we're looking at, because of, not just we didn't get to it, but like for some circumstance during the year. And then, okay, so what's the plan for next year? What's the difference between this and that? So we actually do reduce some if it's something that's definitely not gonna, if it's okay, if we're only trending at this for a number of years. What we've noticed recently is sometimes you'll have a year where it's where it's been trending, then we have this low year, and then we're like, okay, do we drop it, or we look at what those circumstances are? And then so we definitely create our process to avoid just fluffing, any particular line item. So there's usually some reason going into that. I'm trying to think, I don't know if Margaret is back there remembering something I'm not mentioning that in the past that's kind of led into that too, but.
And we do have times too where things do come in under budget. I think a great example, applaud Dan and his staff. They went out to bid for the online development review software. We set aside $75,000. We thought that was going to be close. Only going to end up spending 30 because they got pretty competitive bids. And also since it was competitive, there were some good discounts attached with that. So that's some cost savings we have kind of throughout the budget, but it's a great question.
Just a couple more things, Council. Daycare, is that open to the community, the whole community?
At the community center? Yeah, I think they just have to be using the community center.
Are you?
It's a drop off.
Oh, yeah, like.
It's just a more drop off.
Yeah, if you go.
Yeah.
Then you.
Not a traditional daycare. Okay, I was just thinking with all the information that you're giving
Yes.
county.
Community.
Well, I guess to your question, there are two things. There's rec rats at the community center. You go work out and you can leave, and there's, you can't, it's not like an all day thing. There's a period of time, 2 hours max. And then, but we do have a program during the summer and school holidays, I believe, that's called Dynamites. And then people register, and when that fills up, and that's more like a daycare, but it's not necessarily daycare. It's more like a summer camp. So they do a lot of various activities.
That was just a question because of
yeah.
the significant need in the valley for daycare.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we're seeing the community hospitals.
Yeah, they're
Oh.
opening up a
Daycare
new,
they're doing,
yep.
which is stinking awesome.
Yeah, so
Right.
cool.
Out in Clifton, they're doing that as well. So that's what brought that up.
Absolutely.
Are we going to see it? I think I missed, or I didn't see it in the budget, but are we able to see more of right now in the budget? It's just a list of different sections of departments. Are we going to see a more summary of?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So there's going to be a lot more to the budget's going to be even longer that we're going to get.
Yeah, about an additional 100 pages. Most of that is the all fund summary, which is what we're currently working on, which will be included in the first reading, which gives a summary of all funds.
Like more of you're going to be putting in a lot more summary information.
Yeah. I've been working on it for the
That-
last 2 days, probably 2 more.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I look forward to see that because I know that's the thing that as I've continued to look through the budget is where's a good summary? Where's a good summary of, I think it'd be great to have. And I say these things for transparency for our community for the process out to our community is where's a summary on this personnel thing? If we're jumping costs. So
What's it actually?
historically, what would it be? Here's this one-time pop that we're going to see. Just a summary so we can explain. It's like, why is everybody going up 10%? The market's not going up 10.
Right.
So what's so special about Fruita? If we have something like that, I think it can give some transparency and clarity to what's going on, saying, hey, traditionally, this is what we'd have budgeted, but because of this market study plan that we're doing, we have an impact that's special to 2023. I think that would be good. And I was wanting to see like a summary of non-CapEx versus just CapEx stuff. So if you've got a lot more high level summary stuff, that'd be great. Just because I do. I love my numbers. But it's just like you see all the details and it's great. But then it's like, okay, now I need to step back and get my, if your sheet could only be this big.
Of course. Right.
But just to see.
He's been here for 3 hours now.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, the summary and also policies and procedures. We're adding like a glossary of terms to be included in the budget. And we have, we'll have to figure out the personnel piece, how to maybe best articulate that.
For us on council plus for the community to know about. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anybody else have additions they want Shannon to add to the budget?
Or deletions, right?
Right. Yeah. All right. Ken's ready to get to the holidays. I don't know if there's anything. All right, go ahead, Ken.
If I was just picking what I think we should have, I think we should add Martin Luther King, Juneteenth, and drop Good Friday. That's my opinion.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think those align more with the values of the city, your point from last week. And that Good Friday is a purely religious holiday. So it seems like to me, that's a better use of a person's floating holiday. Because every different religion has those different holidays.
And more consistent across governments too.
Yeah, that's.
So where's Christmas fall? I mean, I'm just asking that question because that's.
Remember, I'm the one that tried to kill Christmas.
Oh, you tried to kill Santa Claus and cookies. That was all. Yeah. I mean, I'm just asking because that's a religious holiday specifically as well.
And my argument why it should stay is because of all of them, I would assume 96% of this country celebrates that versus Good Friday, which is a much
Regardless of
smaller,
religion, yeah.
right, which is a much smaller percentage.
All right.
It's more, you're saying it's more inclusive to make this suggestion that Ken's making
Correct.
of the community.
All right. Janine wanted this. I know.
Oh, I was just gonna help answer that question and
Oh.
based on what Ken was saying, like more even across the board with the municipalities, not a Christmas.
Bank.
Right.
Yeah,
It
more
just-
predictable.
Just more predictable, more standard about across the board. But I don't actually have an opinion about that, but I'm just saying to help answer the question.
And I wanted to ask that question because I know one thing Mike said was the staff really likes Good Friday just because of where it falls. So if we're saying, okay, from all the stuff we're doing with our staff, what makes sense with our staff, not necessarily what we think matters, but if we're saying, what do we do to keep our staff? How does that relate? How would they feel over Martin Luther King Day over Good Friday?
I mean, each question like that's going to have a mixture of opinions. There will definitely, if there's a switch, there will be people that are sad to lose Good Friday for sure. But you know, when we just step back, we're grateful for the holidays we have where we close. It's nice to be aligned with the rest of the organization so that we're closed at the same time as most of those throughout the valley. And, you know, I think you really need to make a decision as a council of that alignment and message outwardly as much. I mean, normally I would, it's not like we've surveyed and we have the answer from, you know, X% want this or want that.
Here's a question just to throw out there is, as we bring in building inspections, how does that bring that in-house? Just so it comes out to, if we're consistent with Junction in the county more, because that's what Ken you're proposing, that makes it easier that when we're dealing with various organizations throughout the valley, that they just know everybody's shut down on this day, everybody's shut down on this day. And as we make a transition with building inspections to bring it in-house, I know that might just be a one-time issue, but I think that that's just something else to throw into consideration to what Ken's suggesting.
I agree.
Any other questions or comments? Do you need a motion on this one or? Yes, no, or do you want a motion? Do you want a vote on this one?
Sure.
Yes. All right. So it's on record. All right. Is there any other discussion or do we?
One quick thing, are we stuck on a net gain of 1 or can we do a net gain of 2? Is it just, we want the net gain of 1? So like we have to get rid of 1 to add the 2, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
do we have to get rid of 1 to add 2? Is that what we're doing, or can we just add the 2? I'm not that I'm
can
saying
do-
we need to do that. I'm just curious if there was a reason.
We're not stuck in a box.
Vegetarian.
I think it's a good question. The budget,
James
we
work-
budgeted.
That's what I'm getting
for
at.
1. so
Okay,
far.
that's okay.
We like, we want to give our employees to step up from everybody else. We have the option to
So
make
with
that choice.
where we're
We
pursuing.
just have to tell them to put it in the budget and they have to figure out where to put it.
So where we're pursuing things right now is that we are going to have 11 holidays, which is consistent with Junction in the county. And on top of that, we have a floating personal day. So we do have a leg up as for benefits right now. It's just with us adding,
With adding 1.
with the suggestion of adding Juneteenth and then of course swapping, we're talking swapping 1 But yes, we're at an even plus. So we already have we have an advantage. If we add this extra holiday, we are at an advantage compared to Junction and County.
Want a motion?
Well, we can discuss it after the second too. So yes, sure. Let's do a motion.
I make a motion that we add Juneteenth and Martin Luther King as Fruita municipal holidays, and that we drop Good Friday as a Fruita municipal holiday.
I will second that.
All right, we got a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Cry,
Aye.
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the city council, always appreciate the opportunity to present. Any other budget questions or?
Oh, wait.
Yes, he runs.
I can come up with a couple if you want me to.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Shannon.
I want to actually, before you sit down, I want to address one thing Matthew brought up
Oh, sure.
as far as budget, as far as iPads.
Did I bring?
Oh, Matthew was made a comment again about, this is the time to talk about it. The iPad should be bigger for some of the planning stuff we're looking at, just because of the maps and all that. And so I don't know where our technology budget for council is. I know I told them I had an iPad for 3 years, and then this is the same one I've had for 7. I'm good with mine. I have glasses and that, but it does make a point whenever we zoom in on a plat, it jumps all over the place. And so so I don't know where that technology sits in our budget as far as for council.
We can do a quick,
It is much, much better when it comes to looking at 2 documents at the same time.
is that what yours is, 13 inches?
It's the 12.9.
12.9, yeah,
Pro.
okay.
Rumors that they're coming out with a 16 in the next couple of years.
Wait, do they have like a 24?
No, I do.
iMac.
We talked about the.
We haven't adopted it yet.
Adopted that yet?
Some conduct.
Yes, yeah.
You approve those now.
That was during the, no, never mind. The consent agenda. All right, so Mike, what were you gonna say?
Like a little kid, I was gonna say, I really need a break, but we have a government contract, so we will just, with Verizon because that's, they have data on them in case you're, at a place where you don't have Wi-Fi. So we'll just get the pricing and figure it out. And we're not talking typically large amounts. So.
By the way, who here actually
It's probably
uses the
time.
cellular on their iPad?
Rarely, sometimes, it just depends on. So I use
Saying
it.
is there's a place to save,
Yeah, I'm just like, I just use it,
you hotspot it.
off my hotspot. So I just was curious if that's something we all needed.
Maybe we
Yeah, I do. If I'm gonna be out and about running around, I'm not gonna use my phone. Hotspot. Like, it's nice. to
Maybe-
just-
Okay. Just thought I'd
Staff,
throw
if
it
you
out
could
there.
give us find us a budget with and without cellular.
And I think in the past they had unlimited, and because of the usage, they dropped it to only per gigabyte. So, and I don't know,
I can see
That-
value in having it, but it'd be nice to having cellular, but it'd be nice to see what the price difference is and maybe the usage of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that expensive. I think we did drop per gigabyte, so now we're paying, it's not very much. I mean, we can look at whatever options we get with our Verizon rep and get back to you. But yeah, we can unlimited.
To change their plans pretty regularly, like anything.
Right.
Anything. It's like, oh, you should. do
Marketing.
this one.
The new unlimited,
A new unlimited, yeah,
it's slightly limited, unlike the last one, which was pretty limited for an unlimited plan.
yeah.
And it's slightly more money for the new unlimited, yeah.
But it is nice to have the cellular because
Oh, yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
the worst thing is to open this thing up somewhere and like, oh, great, I don't have.
Just thought I'd ask.
Figure it out.
so Matthew's trying to weigh the pros and cons. Bigger screen and no cellular, or cellular and
I'd
small.
gladly take larger screen, no cellular, but that's just me.
I mean, it beats James at the first meeting on his phone,
Right.
Do we scare Mike off?
Yes,
I think he had to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
No, I appreciate you
Needed a
bringing that
funny
up, Mayor,
break.
because that's why I'm using my personal device and not the city's. I'm playing with it right now, but I tried using the other one and it's just, I'm used to a bigger one.
When you open the.
And so, I mean,
Quasi
part
judicial would
right,
be.
part of it is back to Aaron's question about public perception. And so if we're all up here with, okay, what are we spending on this stuff? But the other thing is we have to be productive.
Yep.
So, I just learned not to Zoom because it's just, I know it's going to jump all over.
I mean, I
So
fought last week a lot,
Yeah.
looking at those plans.
Right. Right. So when we have thing, and especially when we're talking about housing and all the other stuff that's coming
Mhm.
up, Mike just said we can find it in the budget.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just have to,
That- yeah.
we just have to approve it. And we have to get that in before the 10%.
The 5.
A 5% increase in the total budget, so we can only spend.
It'll be below 5%.
1.7.
I can get you a couple iPads for that.
Okay.
No, it's-
I want to bring that up. I'm giving Matthew a hard time, but it is true. I mean, we haven't changed this
It's been
technology.
Been a
up here.
while.
It's been probably 6 or 7 years is my guesstimate from the ones I know that we've
I
got.
want to say we've done it once since I've been here,
Yeah.
8 years.
As long as we're talking technology, is there a reason why the boneyard of old technology is back here?
Oh. Yeah, we'll move those.
It's like trying to get round.
Sounds like there's been other.
Oh, I did.
Those like extra mics, if we ever need them. It's just convenient having them right there. Yeah, well,
Convenient for you, Matt.
I just, if there's a reason, that's.
And I don't need that many mics ever.
Well, now you know where to
It does
find
look
them.
like- Is it a boneyard or is it active use?
I mean,
It's a combination. There's extra replacement
Not
parts
limited to
and there's
this.
old parts. So
I don't even know. I mean,
I stepped in something I'm not aware of.
I was looking at that today because ironically our audio wasn't working for like, I don't know, an hour.
so it wouldn't be a meeting if Matthew didn't step in something. So I guess that's all I'm gonna say.
We'll get it moved though.
We are still recording, thank you. But all right, any other questions for Shannon before?
Run, Shannon, run.
He's running for the door.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Shannon.
Shannon.
Thank you.
Mm.
That was a great question, Shannon. We appreciate it all. All right. I'm sorry, I'm in a mood tonight. All right, with that, we're gonna move into our.
Are you okay?
City managers.
he's the same color as his shoes right now.
Oh, wow. We're getting a little goofy, guys. Mm.
All right, Mike, you're up.
All right, tomorrow night, James and I have the engagement at Suds Brothers at 5:30. Are you still able to?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're at that one.
Because I haven't had my iPad,
Yeah.
so I.
Oh, right. It was being,
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
And with everything else going on, like my life's been a little chaotic and
that's why I was that's why only reason I
Oh, it
asked.
was funny. And I was like, I know I have that coming up. So I literally went on the city calendar to find it and it's not on there.
On the calendar,
On the city website, I went on there to look to see, I'm like, I wonder what date that is. And I couldn't find it. So
Oh.
maybe I didn't look hard enough. But I didn't see
I
it.
was looking right now to make sure we,
So is it? Okay, I spent some time because I was trying to find the packet and pull up everything on my,
See, I'm not the only one that can't find things. Thank you.
That's true.
no,
And he has
I'll
glasses
jump in.
on.
there.
we are finally getting
Yeah,
the
that's
updates.
tomorrow at 5:30.
Yeah, tomorrow at Suds Brothers, 5:30.
That open to if any of the
Yeah.
residents have.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then I sent something out just so I won't spend much time on it, but RSVPs, if we'd love to have all of you if you can, but the holiday party with employees on December 3rd at 6 p.m. It'll be at Adobe Creek. There'll be a dinner, there'll be awards for employees, and then there's basically kind of the fake money casino night, to spend some time, which is always a good time just talking with people as you go through that.
Mike, you said the new guys have to stay till midnight, right? For cleanup on
Yeah.
council. The new counselors have to.
I think that's
Yeah.
what you said.
Aaron was just saying how much he wanted to stay till
It
midnight.
turns into a pumpkin at 9 o'clock.
We're gonna
Yeah.
talk budgetary items.
We'll have a special budget session over on.
Of us being there, not being there.
I think it's good for us to be there if we can. So
Is it a bring family type thing?
Yeah, you can bring a guest. Yeah, it's all adults, for this one. Yeah. But yeah, you can bring a guest. You can email me, easy enough, and we'll make sure you're on the list if you're able to make it. Don't rearrange travel things or anything like that, but if you're able to be there, that'd be great. And you can leave any.
right, you don't have to be there the whole time. So
Oh yeah, it's me. Sorry. Oh, we Little Saltwash Trail, we just found out from CDOT. We've known that we were going to be working on there's some erosion below the bridges that I-70, when I-70 crosses Little Saltwash and when I-70 crosses the Big Saltwash, there's some erosion under there, and they need to do a project there. I'm forgetting what they call that project. A scouring project with both of those. That it's a 5-month project, and unfortunately, it closes the Little Saltwash Trail heading towards the south. So we've known about the project, but until Sam Atkins was at a pre-construction meeting with them today, realized that it would be a closure, and there's the only way to reroute in that stretch of doing this fix is essentially utilizing the bridge on 340 going over. And that's a 5-month that could start in the next few weeks. So we're going to get some information out. It does not close the Riverfront Trail heading to like the Kokopelli section of the trail. So the east-west, essentially, but it closes the section when you're heading south.
it's just the connector to the state.
Yeah.
Do we?
Which is, it's not good. I mean, it's a long closure, but.
Do we have the ability to put up A-frame signs? Like as soon as we can that say that? So if people don't look at the newsletter and stuff like that, but.
So like if you're on it and you see
Like
it,
they would
yeah,
see it?
that would be we could do.
ASAP,
Yeah.
even
Right, just so they know, starting on, it's coming up
Yeah.
as a way to get to the
We're-
people that use it.
Phone number to CDOT.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're likely,
That CDOT did this, not Fruita.
Right?
CDOT has closed. We'll be closing this.
That's,
I would like to thank you for not using our trail.
right, that's actually not sarcasm,
No.
by the way, in terms of.
Oh, that's
CDOT.
real.
But we had that same conversation internally this morning.
Okay,
Okay.
it's not good that we have to say
No.
that's not sarcasm, by the
No, I don't.
way.
I don't
All right.
Tonight,
good.
the next meeting.
The only other update I had is I wanted to give Dan a moment to just give you a quick update on how his presentation to the Home Builders Association went last week.
That's right.
He was there for about 3.5 hours, including the meeting and questions after, and did a fabulous job. So
And then Mike, will that segue into the letter? Is that kind of what you're
yeah,
thinking?
that's the last
Okay,
update for
all
city
right.
managers update
That's perfect segue.
into the
This will not be 3.5 hours.
yeah.
Essentially, kind of how I opened up the presentation was 3 topics. What we're doing, what we're not doing, and when are we going to do it? And I think that I think there were like probably key members of the HBA or the building community that had a pretty good idea of like what our trajectory was, but it wasn't really open to all. I do know that they recorded the meeting and folks that were participating via Zoom. But I did let them know, and I think it'd be important for the council to know that we have kind of 3 things happening. Like 1, we're soliciting right now for a building official. We have, wish Odie was here, but I think we have about 4 or 5 applicants. And the way that we're going to do the interviews, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this at the workshop, but we have an advisory panel, and we'll also have an internal panel. That would be prudent just to get it on the record so the council was aware that the advisory folks that are going to participate in the chief building official interview process is Brad Keller, who is with FCI Constructors. That's pretty important, just considering like they did build the rec center. You know, they've done a lot of the work at the hospital, I think if not all of the work at the hospital. So that's a pretty big commercial contractor, but so is Shaw and so is others. But, you know, that was an element that seemed like prudent because he's a board member of the Western Colorado Contractors Association as well. So kind of two birds with one stone there. Charlie Gechter with Boa Builders. He's built in a lot of the communities in Fruita. He's built in Aspen Village, Adobe Falls. He developed Oak Creek Estates, which is just to the west of the location where the Monument Ridge Elementary School is, and did Pinewood Estates, which is right smack in between Holly Park and Woodland Park. And Patrick Hummel with Chamberlain Architects. You know, we've I think Fruita's had, you know, a number of relationships with architects, but specifically with the Civic Center, and then Patrick was also a member of our planning commission for at least a year or two. So he is familiar with the organization.
Designed wave.
Yeah,
The important ones, Andrew.
And farm.
And farm. Did he do farm? All right.
We've asked Kayla Brown with the chamber to participate, and we asked the chief, but I'm under the understanding at this particular point in time, we'll probably have Travis Holder, who's the new fire marshal with Lower Valley, participate in those interviews. I'm going to sit with that group, and we're going to kind of try to partition it out where we have technical questions residing with those technical experts. The fit sort of component, which would be our internal staff, which will be most of planning and development, and our neighborhood services coordinator, which is Matt Carson. Do believe that that Mike's going to participate, and Sam, as well as Odette with HR. So we'll have kind of a robust two.
Oh my gosh.
It's not.
Imagine that interview.
Ironically, I mean, was very similar to like my process. You know, when I interviewed here, we had members of GJEP and the business incubator and the chamber participate, and then the internal staff. So I think it's just important, you know, just so like get some initial buy-in with the individual that's going to be there, and then kind of test some of the technical components, since in all honesty, like we don't have a lot of those skills internally right now. So, you know, who better than the folks that they're going to be working with routinely to make sure that they pass the litmus test. I think you'll see this in the letter. I made this abundantly clear several times, hopefully, that we have no plans of implementing a new fee schedule, which was a real, I think, kind of fear at the outset, always a fear. I think that even when we initially said that we weren't going to do that, I think it was important to put that in the letter. We're going to adopt the same codes that Mesa County does. A lot of those were mandated to do now with the new energy, or the International Energy Conservation Code. And so those, I think, some fears about inconsistency with fee schedule for bidding purposes and inconsistency with codes adopted. Just so there was some jurisdictional consistency across the valley. Talked a lot about the new software application. There's a lot of questions about that because like they're pretty trained to do it the way that they're presently doing it, and they wanted to know how to interact with us, so they're not perpetually just coming to the counter. And so they were pretty excited about some of the capabilities the software application has, and I think we'll actually be able to sort of advance that. Not to say that there's competition between how you call for permits now, but I think that'll be a little bit more seamless to work with that application and get people out. We talked a lot about the transition and how it's going to work when people are presently in the middle of plan review and inspections for the county in relationship to when they would have to kind of participate solely with us for planning and zoning purposes and for the issuance of permits and plan review and inspections. And all in all, I think it was actually a really productive meeting. I think we quelled a lot of assumptions that weren't actually true, but I think ones that would come up. So they're not like delegitimized just because they didn't hear the city officially take a position on it, but like good questions about, you know, how are things going to get reviewed? How are they going to know when plans are going to be able to pick up permits? How do they call inspections? I mean, it's a real nuts and bolts nuance, which I think was part of the length of the discussion. They certainly feel, I think, excited to participate in the hiring. I highly doubt that we'll have anywhere near the robust process for the subsequent 2 employees. You know, that will certainly be kind of an internal process and then up to the building official. But I think they like the idea of being able to understand who kind of the final arbiter of questions or concerns that they might have as they go through the process. I don't think anybody really left there with some of the anxiety that they had coming in. I think we were able to really solidify what our approach is and why we're doing it. And all in all, I think they want to participate. You know, I didn't get a sense that there was going to be some
Mutiny.
otherwise, I don't know if I'd be here. But I think it was good, and I think it was a good idea for us to go do that. I suspect that subsequent requests will come as we start the transition process when we give notice. Like they really want to be in a participatory role with regards to the rollout so they can get it out to their membership. I think we got to remember that they have a deep reach, you know, with all subcontractors in both organizations. And so I think it'll be a good thing for us to be kind of hand in hand as we go through this process and they participate in it. But I definitely didn't get the same sense as some of the concerns at the outset.
Dan, I have an AMGD meeting on Thursday, and I know already that this is gonna come up. Would you mind just giving me some bullet point FAQs that you had, like that you were just talking about?
Absolutely.
Just give me some, resources to,
We'll get those out to the whole group. That
Yeah.
was our plan, kind of following that. We were.
but I need them before Thursday morning.
Yeah.
So like tomorrow.
I think we pretty much have them.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're really talking points.
Yeah,
If you have
good.
questions and calls, I think you can refer to those talking points. But I imagine like with each individual group, there might be different questions. And so we might have to tailor those talking points depending on who the audience is. But I think that's one where we could use very similar talking points as we did with the HBA.
Mhm.
2 things. I'm grateful that you guys are being very robust on the interview process. Like it's a very important position. And for many reasons, it'd be great to have an overkill that some people might have. I think that's very important. The second thing, I don't remember anymore.
Well,
Anyway.
so maybe this will spark one. I have no idea, but in my opinion, and this wasn't said emphatically word for word, but I think there was a receptiveness to the fact that like we feel the pressure to execute at a high level. Like it's not just setting up this new regulatory scheme that's going to be adversarial, but we realize that we're going to have a lot of earned credibility if we do a great job, and we're really going to be critiqued if we don't execute appropriately. And so I think that they, at least from where I was sitting, which was unfortunately right in the middle, I think they've saw that like, this is really important to us to do a good job as well, and that we felt that pressure.
I remember that thing through your interactions with them, did concerns that were raised last week to us by the community get resolved? Those individuals, did they find satisfaction?
Well, I think this was only open to the board, wasn't it?
It
I mean,
was.
wasn't
So we-
the whole membership, so.
Wasn't the whole
But it-
membership.
But it was.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Right.
Oh, were those people that emailed and called us?
So, yeah, so the president of the board was there, but Mr. Davis, who called, every one of you was not at that.
Oh, he wasn't there.
I don't think that that Kronos Builders has a actual position on the board of directors right now. I think that a whole host of reasons behind that, but probably more specifically the fact that like, half of the ownership of that group, I don't think that ownership changed, but like they lost some capacity, obviously, with Commissioner Davis being sworn in. So, I mean, that's, Garrett's been super busy. He said to kind of fill the other 50% of that operation from the leadership component. So I think that was part of the reason, at least in the conversations that I've had with him.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but what was nice about kind of the reception that he did have and the focus of the meeting was, it was not the same focus as that call to you all. It was focused on, we are doing it and how to work together and not, you should not do this. That was not the message or the focus of the group.
So because I've received multiple phone calls from one individual. Because it was recorded, if they call back, can I say, hey, it was recorded by the HBA? You should call them so you can sit and listen to the meetings to get all the details. Is that something that,
I don't know what their,
I don't know what their procedures are.
Matthew, I think that's part of the reason, like the letter and the bullet points, is that then we have documentation to help when people call us as well. And then once this is public record, do we put this out on the website? This one, I would think would be more important.
We want to, right now we have in the draft, as you saw, like copying those two associations. Tonight we wanted to talk about any others we want to add, that we could add to that, but.
you're saying won't endorse what we're doing? That's not a function of what they do.
I think they do endorse certain things and they'll not endorse certain things as well. I really don't. I
know that would put them in an awkward spot with the county if they endorse this. So.
I think it's more a matter of doing a really good job getting the information out. So I think that there were some questions about whether or not we were thinking about doing this, when we were going to do this. And I think there's a whole host of reasons behind that. We don't have to belabor the point. I think that we all kind of know what our trajectory is at this particular point in time, but it was mentioned, at least in the meeting and in the conversations after the meeting, that like we wanted to know if it was going to happen and if there was any sort of change that could take place. And once they knew that it was going to happen, I think they kind of pivoted pretty quickly to, we just want to be a part of the process and make sure that it's successful, because there's some mutuality to all of this. Like if it doesn't go well, like that hurts their business. And so like that's the sense that I get like with the participation, is that they want to make sure that like they can align all their subcontractors and all their builders to be able to interact with this in a seamless way.
Which was not really exactly the tone of our phone call last week. So that, I believe what you're saying, and at that meeting that you had those people's concerns and very well. And I'm just, the phone calls that we got is not that.
Yeah.
Right, and we won't get the phone call 2 years from now that say, hey, thanks for doing this. We
Right.
won't get those.
I'm just saying, it wasn't even like to talk us out of it. It was, or the lack of understanding that we were doing it. It was what, and why. We had that conversation too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I one of the conversations I had with Mike in part of this letter, which I like, is that talking about the why is going back to our strategic plan and our community involvement. That's our why. Our community really is why we're doing this, is to make it a better place for our community. So I like that that's in the letter, because that's really the why. And if they don't want to read it as that, they're looking at the why as dollars and cents. They're not looking at the community.
Yeah.
So did I hear staff right that you guys are going to reach out to those individuals that directly contacted us last week and say, hey, here's a letter that we're sending out publicly to county commissioners?
Oh yeah, we can do that. And we've been in communication with them prior to the calls.
Well, I'm trying to say,
right. But after.
I understand all that's like,
Yeah.
are we going, I think it'd be valuable to say, hey, here's a document that we've sent out to the county commissioners. Like Garrett, for example.
Yeah.
Garrett, here, you've got our correspondence as well to get him on the page. I think it's valuable to give this continued correspondence to
for
the
sure.
people that have called us now.
There's a lot of
Squelch that.
kind of back and forth, and I like the fact that solidifies it.
Yeah. I think it'd be great to come up with that email list and be like, hey, whoever's called you, Garrett and anybody else, because I think Garrett was consistent to all of us. But like, just if we could email him those individuals this letter as well, appropriately timing.
Yeah, I think we can do that, but we'll also, in copying those associations, we'll be asking them to send, and we'll be asking them to send it to their full membership.
Right, yes.
But I think it's specific. It'd be great to say, hey, Garrett, you showed concern.
Mhm.
Here's further, we are directly replying to you, not ignoring. That's what I think we should go to him, not indirectly
Yeah.
through the organizations, because that says, hey, we appreciate your concerns. Now here's your answer.
Aaron, since he reached out to us as council, once this
you
is
can
approved as
forward
a
that.
council member, we can also send it to him as an individual.
Yeah. Well, and it'd be nice if staff would just send it and it's one email and not 6.
Well, I don't know, 6 says a
Why not?
big thing that we're all, it'd be 7, but we're all in agreement. That's the other thing that it would spread is that, oh, yes, here, Garrett, we all agree
Okay.
on this.
And
I can see that.
personally,
Mhm.
I think that's important.
Okay. No, I see value in that.
The only thing that I want to mention is that like there are thousands of
Mhm.
contractors. And
Can't
so
do
the
re-
best way to get it out is through the memberships. I mean, they really do have that.
Absolutely don't disagree with that, but we didn't get calls from thousands.
But
of people. We got
100%.
calls from 2 or 3, I don't know how many.
But I just wanted to make sure that it was.
Some of us got 3
You
multiple
asked, you
times.
said you wanted it.
I'm not.
Once you
Um,
approve this, you can send it to whoever.
Right. So I do think there's value. I mean, as a council member, will send it, like you reached out to me and I wanted to make sure you saw this.
I think that's good.
I just want to make sure that like, like I talked to the board, that might not represent the position or the.
Every member.
Emotions around this topic with all of the membership.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's the leadership of that board that is charged with essentially doing things that are in the best interests of the whole. And so I didn't want to,
Well, and
it
a
wasn't
big
20,000
part of what they were,
No, yeah.
the big part of it was that they felt like they weren't included. So I feel like that you've, on the other end, now we have them included in this process. And I think that gives them a win. So I want to commend you that you did what you did. Great job. It must not have been fun to walk right in the lion's den. And I just want you to understand that we appreciate and we understand the fire that you took for us. And I appreciate that a lot. Good job.
And this letter is very well written. I appreciate the way. that it's-
We wanted to have it in Friday, but the way the week was going, and then we needed Monday to come back to it, and then we felt really good about it and put it together. And so apologize for adding it on Monday, but we sent that email out. So if you had downloaded the packet before, you'd have to go download it again because it was.
We'll be okay. We'll survive that one.
I think the mayor,
It wasn't 400 pages, so.
I think the mayor brings up a really good point, though, like, in my travels, which won't conclude with just that meeting last week. No, I mean, we will shop around and make sure we get to as many because that's the way that you control the accuracy of the information that's going out. But, focusing on the why in that letter is going to be our approach internally, as staff members. And so that's at least the expectation that I think Mike has of our department. And that's what we're going to focus on as far as, kind of the trajectory and why we're doing what we're doing. At least that's the direction that we've been under presently.
With that, is there any changes anybody wants to see in the letter?
Make a motion, we approve that.
All right, then we have a motion.
And we approve the letter as written.
Second.
All right, we've had a first and a second. Are there any other questions?
Do we need to talk about a distribution list? Is that what you just mentioned?
Yeah, do you want any other copy? Do you want to? We have a little bit of Western Colorado and Western Colorado Contractors Association.
And Mesa County, because it's gonna go to them.
It's
To the
right,
commissioners.
Mesa County. Are you talking about the commissioners?
Commissioners, right.
It's trust.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, now you guys have been in contact with the Mesa County Building Department. Do we need to send a copy to them as well? Just because it's solidified.
Maybe a good idea.
Typically, if we're sending something to the commissioners, we'll send it to our counterparts.
Okay.
Good.
Well, I mean, I just want to make sure that like, that's fine with like the CC on the actual official letter itself. Obviously, there's a lot of professional services that interact with building departments, architects, engineers, and there's not a real like specific association associated with that. So we'll try to get that reach out there as far as we can. Some of those folks are planning projects and And it's a little different than just applying for a building permit to build a house, like, they're working with drafters and so, like, it's important to make sure that we, close that loop.
I'll be sharing it with several of the GJARA, committees and such, our governmental affairs and our AMGD, and there's a couple of governmental that have been asking, so I don't have those lists, but I'll share them with the directors that do, so if that's.
So I guess an additional ask is once this is done and sent out to the commissioners, that we get a copy of it and just so we know it's good to send out. Because I think I know for me, timing is I'm gonna want to.
What are we looking at?
We don't
for
want Garrett to
timing-wise
get it
on
before
that?
Cody.
Tomorrow, okay, good.
Right, I want to make sure, yeah, we don't get ahead of ourselves and
Yeah,
follow the proper.
no, that'll be perfect timing. That's good.
If it's approved tonight, then yeah, our plan is send it out tomorrow. I mean, we don't want to wait on that for any reason.
If we can get a copy, without the draft on it and all that.
We want to send it to the commissioners first and their
Yes.
staff, and then we'll start sending it to the other.
That's right. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? We have a first and a second. All right, no other discussion. Deb, would you please poll council?
Counselor Miller,
Yes.
Counselor Hansi,
Yes.
Counselor Bremen,
Yes.
Counselor Purser,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Cry.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Great job.
All right. With that, we're going to move into our council reports and actions. Ken?
GVRTC meets on Monday, November 7th. I may or may not, I also have federal jury duty the whole month of November. I'm still gonna learn how that works, so I may get called to serve on a jury. So I'm planning to make that meeting, but it's possible I can't. But they know. That's it.
All right. Janine?
The Downtown Advisory Board is implementing 81521 Thursdays, starting as soon as we can. And what that really means is any businesses that want to participate, and it can be during the day or in the night. That's why it's just 81521 Thursdays, can offer like a discount of whatever they want to do, but every Thursday, and they can let CR know at a certain date for that month. And so she'll do all the PR work for that piece of the puzzle. And then people who are participating will get a little poster to put in their window and all of that good stuff. And we're really excited about it. And yeah, we'll see where that goes. And I will have my first Arts and Culture Board meeting next week. So that'll be great. And I missed the Livability Commission meeting one more time because of marching band, but the season's over, so I'll be back in. So that's all I've got.
All right, Amy?
Both of my meetings are next week, so I don't have much to report. I did drop off some boxes for the historical preservation is moving a whole lot of stuff to switch rooms. So we have some incredible dedicated volunteers that are working on that. And our Fruita Monument Wildcat football's going to playoffs this weekend. If you'd like to come join us on Saturday at 1:00, 11:30 for tailgate.
Against Central.
Against Central. So it's going to be a
Be a
fun game.
big game.
I feel kind of bad already, but it's okay. It'll be fun. So come put on your blue. That's all I have.
All right, Matthew?
Nothing on chamber for GJEP. Just, there's really nothing of substance, just reminding them that we do have land out here. So as they're talking to people, there's opportunity.
All right,
That's it.
James?
Nothing for me.
All right, Aaron?
No updates.
All right, the only one I have is head police commission report, or everything seems to be, they're usually short and sweet meetings, so. And I don't know, one thing, Mike, I'll ask is, I'm not sure the last time we had Chief Kraus come in and present to us, but with a new council, it might be good to get him on a workshop, maybe February, March. I mean, I don't know what we have planned for workshops, but maybe get him on that schedule just to come in and present all the numbers for the year, and
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
because he normally does that about once a year. Yeah. So, that's all I have. Is there anything else? No. All right, with that, the time is now, oops, now I got it. 9:30 PM. We are adjourned. All right, thanks, everyone.